All right, we got beta branch 1.6.2 for Bannerlord that has just launched here today. And this is not a massive patch. This is a nice little small quality of life, typical kind of update that will fix a couple things, add some performance increases, and a couple stuff here and there. So in my typical fashion, let me go through essentially some of the bigger changes that have happened in 1.6.2. And again, there's not many big changes. We got some new armors added across Battania and the Aserai. And the Aserai actually have two sick new chainmails, and I'll be showing that off after we go through the patch notes. Also, there's been some tweaking to the actual party screen. So now when you're on the party screen, when you go to select individuals to be, say, the surgeon or the quartermaster for your respective party, it'll actually show you exactly what that is going to result in. So for example, hey, I'm going to assign this guy to be my quartermaster. That's going to result in this increase to my party size, so on and so forth. And again, I will be showing that off as well. Some organization tabs have been added in for the encyclopedia, so being able to organize things by, say, wealth, so on and so forth. Also, they've added in the diplomacy screen, when you take a look at a kingdom, you can see who they're also at war with just by looking at the diplomacy screen, which is quite nice. You don't have to jump into the encyclopedia, look at the relative kingdom anymore. You can just do it right through there. Also, some other fixes to quests, like if you have a companion you want to go and send off on a quest, it'll now tell you whether or not, or tell you the respective % success chance based off that companion's skill. So for example, it's a quest that requires scouting, and rather than it saying, hey, you have to have 160 scouting or else you just can't do the quest, it will now tell you, hey, if you have less than this amount, this is the percentage. So it just makes it so sending companions on a quest is not as gated as it was before, right? Oh, I don't have 120 scouting companion, I can't send them off on a quest. Well, this sucks, I have to do it myself. So they have added that into the game, quite a nice little improvement. But outside of that, just a number of performance tweaks, some things with bracing in single player that have now been added if you have a weapon after over a certain length with its handle. But outside of that, that's really all that 1.6.2 is doing. If you're playing multiplayer, they've now added loot that you can put onto your characters in between matches to have them have a little bit more of a custom look. But if that's all you wanted to know about 1.6.2, you're good to go. Go ahead and download it and try it out if you'd like. In my experience, since it is such a light patch, it's not going to change or break much of what you're already experiencing on 1.6.1. But what I will say is, if you are using a bunch of mods, do not test the beta branch, because obviously you're not going to be able to take advantage of those mods. You're more often than not better off just waiting until that mod comes, or until the beta branch comes to the main branch and the mod then updates. A lot of people probably haven't transitioned off of 1.6.0 since 1.6.1 just landed today. And this is, as always, cross-compatible with previous saves, so you can boot up a previous save and get going. If you really want to try these beta branches out, the best way to approach it, in my opinion, is to have a save that is always a save you play with the beta branch. So you say, let's say you have one file called main, and that's your main campaign you're playing. We'll make another one called main_beta, and then use that one to test out the beta branch. And that way, if something happens, it doesn't cripple your main branch, main campaign you're playing through. And this way you can see some of the changes and see if you really want to put them into your main save. But as always, guys, like I've said, that is all you really need to know for 1.6.2 and a Spark Notes version. We're going to be going through the nitty or gritty here, but I just wanted to give that information up front. If that's all you wanted to know, feel free to shut the video down if you so wish. But as always, please make sure you are liking, subscribing, and commenting below. That it just helps so much, and it's stupid that it helps that much. But for those of you that want to stick around, let's get into these 1.6.2 beta patch notes. We're just going to swing into these. As always, we've got the crashes. They're there. If you experience a bunch, make sure you look through this to see if they are now fixed for you. Of course, if there's any, big crashes that are happening, I will let you guys know and say, hey, they fixed a crash that occurred when loading older save files. This was happening to a lot of people. It became a big thing, so it's there. But for the most part, nothing big was added in these crashes. Performance made various combat performance optimizations, a little less stuttering on the battlefield. Art added 2 new Battanian, 2 new Aserai, and a new Khuzait ornate battle crown. We will take a look at all 5 of those. Quick math. All 5 of those in the game in just a little bit. Also added cloth physics to some of the saddle reins. Rugged saddle, rugged Bedouin saddle, and rugged fur saddle. So that way you get a little bit more lifelike representation of the reigns. And I'm excited to see some of this stuff coming in, because as we saw with the previous video, linked in the upper right corner, about the future for Bannerlord, we know that the Bannerlord banners are coming in, so it's cool to see these cloth physics kind of becoming more and more to life. Sound improvements for Aserai, Valandia, Empire, and Sturgia scenes. And there's a lot of sound improvements across this entire patch. Something that they had said in those future plans too was kind of reducing the overall memory footprint of sound and reducing the amount of channels that it takes, so that it reduces, again, the impact upon your machine. So always great to see those things. Of course, also improvements for various materials and textures. For the campaign map, this one's pretty cool. Village level masks now update correctly as the village hearth value changes. A village mask changes the display of the village on the campaign map by adding buildings and production resources as the village hearth value grows. Previously, it only changed after raids or loading the game. And obviously, the higher the hearth, the more abundant, the more prosperous that relative village is. So this goes to show you that the map will now dynamically change as you're playing. You won't have to reload it or raid it to kind of reboot the mask that is on that village. So a nice little QOL there. For the UI, clan party members' role assignment tooltip now shows the explicit effects that the hero will have on the party, like I was saying. So if you want to appoint someone to quartermaster, it's going to tell you explicitly what that includes. Added wealth comparison to the clan encyclopedia list page, so this way you can organize it by wealth, gives you a better idea of recruiting. So if you have your own kingdom, maybe you only want to bring the particularly wealthy into your kingdom, so you can organize that by wealth. Or maybe you only want to bring the particularly poor into your kingdom because they're easier to access, whatever it is. When looting, the left side inventory is now by default sorted by value. This is quite nice. So when you get into a battle, you finish the battle, you jump to the loot screen, it will now be sorted by value. So anything that is particularly good or of course of high value is going to be at the top, and you'll see it first. And I always do this. I always have to double press the value button to make sure it's organized like that. So it's nice to see it being done this way. Add a display of factions that the current selected faction is in war with to the Kingdom Diplomacy tab, and I'll show that off, but basically it's a little icon below the kingdom that you have selected. That kingdom will be on the right, of course, because the kingdom that you are is on the left. But on the right, you'll see the leader's icon, then below that you'll see any faction they're at war with. Added a battle size option step between between 600 and 1000. That new step is 800. So anytime you make these jumps in the battle size, you have to kind of divide it by 2, right? So 1000 means 500 on both sides. 600 means 300 on both sides. So with 800, you now will get 400 on both sides, meaning that if you are dealing with 2 800-person armies, half of those armies are going to zone in, and then they will subsequently zone in with reinforcements as their numbers dwindle. So this is just something that is going to be nicer for some of those rigs that can't quite handle 1000 but want to go higher than 600. Moving down here for battles and sieges, the bracing feature has been enabled for spears with handles with 230 base length and above. Now, it's nice to see that that's been added for spears in single player. It was already kind of existing for very specific ones like pikes, but I really want to see this as a mode for spear-based infantry, especially any infantry that has the word spearman in it. I want them to be able to brace so they can take a cavalry charge right on the nose. I would love to see that. That's going to be so cinematic when we can actually get that going. Moving down here into quests and issues, removed the hard conditions that prevented the player from sending a companion to resolve an issue. Instead, the companion skill in relation to the issue skill requirements will determine the success chance. So again, like I've said before, you're no longer gated at a like hard cap, right? You have to be 120 X skill to do Y quest. Now it's, hey, I've got X skill, here is my % chance to accomplish Y. So a nice little change there. The elder brother that you've rescued is now available for creating a party. Prior to this, you could not do that. He would just sit there in your party and kind of just, well, in your family and just kind of take up space. That is no longer the case. He can now immediately be created as a party leader, which is good. He has a ton of great stats and abilities. Moving down here into conversations and encounters, improved facial expressions and their use in conversations, because that is great. Because sometimes when you talk to an NPC, God, highlight you penis, there we go. Sometimes when you talk to an NPC, they just have a rictus grin, and it's terrifying, especially when they're like, "Thank you for helping us," and they just have that blank doll stare, you know, like horrifying looking. Like, I don't know if he's being facetious or if I actually did help him. But for multiplayer, we get this little ditty right here. Implemented the level progression and customization system. You'll now be awarded loot for playing multiplayer games. This loot can then be used to unlock various cosmetic items, which change the appearance of your character and troops. So a nice progression system for those of us that have still been playing multiplayer. I myself have not been playing multiplayer as much, but I do hope to get back into it in the future and show off some more Captain Mode gameplay. But for both modes, we get performance increase here, improvements to combat physics, reduces CPU memory usage of the game, audio performance improvements, and minor UI performance improvements. Then for combat, we get the ghost camera can now pass under obstacles like bridges, tents, etc. And that one's actually kind of huge for me because I use the ghost camera a lot to navigate around to get cool screenshots and so on and so forth, but it was always kind of tedious when if you want to go through, like, say, a drawbridge, you want to go through the gate, you warp to the top of the gate, you go over the gate, then you jump down to back to where your perspective was. So it's nice that you can now do this, you don't have to worry about it, so very excited to see that. And then, of course, modding changes, which I don't ever understand, but they're there nonetheless. As always, guys, though, just wanted to quickly go over these. Let's jump into the game to show off those new armor pieces, to show off the new party screen selection stuff, and to show off the diplomacy tab. Starting off with the armor pieces, we have just our usual setup here. Here is the new Khuzait battle crown, and it is pretty sweet. Here, let me take these off so you can see the back end of it a little bit better. Like, that is pretty damn cool. You see, well, I really like seeing the new armor pieces added in because they always have like a much sharper and better look than a lot of the OG launch armor pieces. So I'm really stoked to see more Battanian and Aserai armor added in. Battanian we've been seeing a ton of, right? A lot of medium and hot and heavier armor pieces. I'm most excited for Aserai because Aserai probably of all of the armor selections has the least to go for. And I think Volandia also needs more chest options and more shoulder options because it has like 5,000 head options or helmet options. Now for the Battanian armor, we'll go into this new tartan. And then we get another option here. I mean, look at that. That's pretty fancy, right? Let me take these off. Let's really be bedazzled here. We also get a tartan with a chest plate. Nice little convention there as well. Now for the Aserai chainmail, you can see this right here. Very simple. Then look at this decorated chainmail, right? It takes that same motif from the other Aserai armor that I can't remember the name of off the top of my head that the Master Archers used to use. I'm sorry, not Master Archers, the Mameluke Heavy Cavalry used to use. So it has that same, again, like stylistic motif over the chests here that I really, really like. So stoked to see some of these pieces added into the game, but that is our new armor for 1.6.2. Jumping into the clan screen, I'm going to show you how the appointment of roles is directly, I guess, seeable. You can tell what's going on as soon as you assign someone. So we're going to click here. I'm going to go to Quartermaster, and you can see that it's going to give me, it shows me the perks I have active for this, but how it's going to give me increase in party size by 2.5. Now let's go down to my surgeon or my healer. And if I hover over surgeon, perks, triage tent, doctor's oath, effects, casualty to survival rate plus 0.8%, healing rate increases for heroes plus 40%, and healing rate increase for troops plus 81%. Also, always awesome. And I think this character has, yeah, that's actually interesting. Quartermaster says it's off of trade right here in this tooltip, but it should say off of steward because it's showing me all my steward perks. So one thing to note. So let's take a look at Itzul the Outcast, who has Scouting 1. So you can see here that here's the effects that that's going to give me. Not a lot. Now if I move down to the Huntress and take a look at Scout, 117 Scouting, all of her available perks right now, and quite a bit more effects. So it's nice to be able to get an immediate juxtaposition as to which character is going to be better in what role within your party. Moving over to the diplomacy screen, we're going to take a look at the new At War feature here. So we are clearly at war with the Southern Empire. You can see the Regia right here. You can see this little symbol for at war, and the other person that they're at war with is the Western Empire. I'm going to go ahead and click Northern. Oh, they're at war with the Western Empire. Khuzait, not at war with anyone. Western Empire at war with both Southern and the Northern Empire. So a real great way to just quickly get a context clue as to who everyone was at war with without having to constantly jump into the encyclopedia, which I really enjoy. And as for the encyclopedia too, as this finishes saving, you have the ability to sort by wealth across all of the available clans, from poor obviously all the way up to very rich. But that concludes our video here on 1.6.2 and just kind of covering some of the things that came out with this patch. Again, it is a very light patch, so you should not experience too many issues when you're playing. I really only tested it for a handful of hours, and in my experience, I didn't experience any crashes. In 1.6.1, I was experiencing crashes when I did that. Go to the inventory, but only under weird and certain circumstances. It has clearly been fixed and is no longer an issue. The big thing that was making my game crash on inventory is because I have the cheat console up so that I can quickly access all the armors in the game to show them off to you guys. So that was causing a crash anytime I would jump into any kind of inventory screen. That doesn't seem to be the case here in 1.6.2. And again, from what I've experienced, no real issues with many crashes that I can experience are repeatable. Like things where I can, okay, always crashes every time I do this. Maybe the odd crash here and there, but again, I don't really experience many crashes, so your mileage may vary. So always the ultimate question is, should you test 1.6.2? I think that you can absolutely wait on 1.6.2 just because there's nothing huge added in, unless you really want to jump on the Aserai or the Battanian armors, to be totally honest with you. If you don't want to do those, stick on that main branch, keep using those mods if you so wish, but until we probably get a big overhaul like the siege towers in 1.6.3, which I hope is coming, or 1.6.4, who knows, or the battle terrain map, I think you're safe to just kind of stay on that main branch, let 1.6.2 hit you in the main branch where it is, and then progress to that hopefully a bigger 1.6.3. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. If you have any questions, please go ahead and let me know in the comment section below. But have a good one and take care.